What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and some more SPQR coverage. So we're starting a new series for you guys today on how to basically start each faction. So in other words, building a starter list here. And the game tends to recommend starting around anywhere from 250 to 500 denarii. We're just going to choose 500 as a good starting force. 250, just depending on the faction, really doesn't give you much in the way of anything, so I wouldn't really consider it a true start. So we're going to be starting off today with taking a look at a somewhat typical 500 point Athenian warband and um, how that was put together, what units we have in there, what heroes, any equipment changes, and then a little bit of an overview of why that particular list was chosen and some ideas on how to run that just to get you started. So we'll be going through here in detail, so stay tuned as we move through this in step. Alrighty guys, so starting off here, we'll be taking a look at our hero that we've chosen. We're just going to run one here in these sample 500 point or 500 denarii warbands, just keeping things nice and simple, and really that gives you plenty of actual units in most cases, and just quantity as well. You don't want to take up too many of your points with heroes, although heroes at lower levels certainly can be formidable as well. So we're taking a level 1 infantry hero. Base cost is 40 denarii, as you can see, and with a couple of upgrades we're going to bring that up to 62. Just again, the Athenian hero at least does not come with any built-in war gear, so we have to add a few things. So as you can see there, the large shield is going to be necessary, as well as a Linothorax, just to have some actual armor, and then a sword as well. We're not going to go with a long spear here, even though we're going to be primarily sticking him in the Hoplite unit. The sword will make more sense once we look at the talents that we've chosen, right? Now, whenever you build a level 1 hero, you get basically 2 immediate stat bumps, and we're choosing basically to make him a little bit nastier in combat. The 2 wounds, we could take an extra wound, I believe, but at these lower levels, the hero really is already kind of tanky with the right gear, and hopefully we'll have several hoplites to sort of soak up some damage outside of things like challenges and so on. We're not too concerned about making him survivable in that regard. So we've chosen one extra melee. So basically he's going to hit on +3 just to make sure that we put more hits through, and ideally that will lead to more casualties, which is also why we've chosen +1 melee dice. So he's going to have 3 attacks. So again, 3 attacks hitting at +3. That's a good way to start. We could have gone all in on melee dice, 4 attacks, but only at +2, so we're kind of hitting 50-50. So now we have chosen the talents very specifically and very deliberately for the hero. So we've decided to go with Wall of Iron, which gives us +1 block when we're using a sword, hence why we purchased the sword. And really we're just getting that because we have to. Really what we were after is Lethal Blade, which then really bumps our offense up, so giving us lethal 2 or -2 to opponent's armor saves when those hits are delivered. So gives us, again, great offense there. The hero should be dropping things outside of super tanky units like maybe cavalry, like cataphract type cavalry, or other maybe heavily armed enemy heroes, but that will be, again, a different type of strategy that we need to do to deal with the heroes. We ideally don't necessarily want to engage enemy heroes unless we're certain to win those battles. But again, very specific reason for the talents there. So the hero is going to help deliver some casualties and keep the hoplite unit intact as much as possible. All right, guys. So to summarize with the hero here, the stats that you can see. So by putting a Linothorax on, we're reduced by 1 movement. But that's fine. This list is not designed for speed at the outset. You want to basically focus everything into this hoplite unit, which we'll see in a moment, but also the hero, since he doesn't need to be speeding around the battlefield or anything, that's fine. He's going to be at the same speed as the hoplites. So his melee will be at +3, agility's +1, armor will be +2 now with the Linothorax. Range is +1. We don't have any throwing weapons, but it's still a stat. 3 melee dice, and then bravery's +3. We didn't need to modify that. That's already very good, as most heroes tend to have. And then the 2 wounds for now. As he levels up, if we were part of, playing this as part of a campaign, the next sort of stat upgrade would probably be to get that 3rd wound and then maybe adding another melee die, but that's for later. So next up, we're going to move on to our minion units for this 500 point warband. All right, guys, so to start with here, again, the list is primarily focused around one large Athenian hoplite unit. So we're going to take 15, and that's mainly to ensure that we can have phalanx as long as possible when that is appropriate to put the unit into the phalanx formation. So, and again, plenty of wounds here too, so it's going to be pretty tough for an opposing unit to chew through that outside of something equivalent, right? So, other heavy hoplites, certainly like Spartans, but again, they cost more, and at these lower points levels, then hopefully your quantity will make up for some other units slightly better quality. The big threat will always be, of course, for like Roman legionaries and other things that maybe are similar in points cost, but could still outfight you. So Macedonian pikemen would come to mind, but someone who goes all in on cavalry too is going to be pretty rough there. But that's just something you got to deal with. Although, if you can get yourself into a good position and force them to fight you in the front with phalanx engaged, then you definitely are a tough nut to crack, and that's kind of our goal here. Make them come to you. We're not going to race around the battlefield, and our other minion units will hopefully help that make sense. So we've chosen again 15. Base cost is 210. With our upgrades, it's going to bring it to 295. So what we've chosen to do, they come with large shield and long spears. We could have just left them naked in that sense, but then they're going to start dropping like flies, right? The large shield just isn't enough defense. So we're going in with the main armor upgrade here. So Linothoraxes for the whole group gives them that +2 armor. It's going to slow them down a bit, but we don't care. We've already explained our reasoning there with the hero. So they're all going to be the same speed there. So the Linothoraxes again, and then we're choosing the one other upgrade that makes sense, a horn, just for that once per game extra action. So to summarize, large shield, long spear, Linothoraxes, and the horn. So getting to their stats then, so we've dropped down to movement 5, not a big deal. As is typical for most standard melee units, they have a good melee of +2. That'll serve us well. No agility, that's fine. Again, we're not racing around skirmishing in that sense like some of the other lighter units. That's not their role. Armor's +2 now. Again, very solid. Range +1. Again, it's just there as a stat. They don't shoot. They have 1 melee die now, as do all pretty much regular melee units. Bravery's +2, very solid again. Our hero being stuck in here will certainly help with his extra bravery, and then 1 wound apiece, as is typical for minion units. Next up, we'll move on to the other 2 units of the list. Alright guys, so the rest of the list is pretty simple because again we've taken up over half of the points with our unit, our hoplite unit, and then the hero who's going to be essentially in there most of the time. So to round out, we have other choices in the Athenian list, and this is more just a personal preference, but Greek archers have a sort of penalty where if they're not spending an action to aim, they're reduced. They get a -1 penalty. Now, if you specifically take the Athenian archers, you don't have to deal with that penalty. And that's kind of the reasoning here. So they're actually better than most other Greek archers. So we're not bothering with Peltus or Siloi or anything like that, or even the cavalry in this initial list. So basically, with our remaining points, we're going to take 2 units of 10 Athenian archers, clocking in at 70 denarii, which is very generous for what they do, and all they have is a bow. We're not giving them anything else, mainly also because we don't have the points, but really you can spend points on kind of making them a pseudo combat unit. It's not worth the denarii, honestly, unless you're just going for something completely different in your build. This is just going to serve you well. They're focused on what they're designed to do. So 10 archers without having to deal with the poor or mediocre accuracy penalty is going to serve you well. And then ideally, deployment wise, they're going to basically sit on either flank of the hoplites and essentially again force the enemy to come to you as they're coming in. You can start throwing shots at the opponent. So it's 20 shots per unit. So in other words, 40 per turn here, right? Because you get 2 actions, shoot twice with each of these guys. And occasionally they're just going to help whittle down opponents. Ideally, focusing on, depending on what's coming at you, of course, you might just simply focus on wiping out enemy units wholesale if they're like weak units, other similar type of what would normally be considered skirmisher type units, low armor things. If you can pour in the shots and just whittle them down to where they're literally not a threat anymore, one way to go about it. Now, if the opponent has something similar, like just a large, nasty, or scary unit, you might try throwing everything into that just to whittle some numbers down, just to give your hoplites that extra edge. Because again, there are things that will certainly outfight your Athenian hoplites, but prime targets are other units that also rely on certain special rules once they hit a certain number, which is typically 10 or more, right? So if you can drop them down to 9, and eliminate their other special rule or similar special rule. So whether it's phalanx, the shield wall, any of the barbarian lists that have like the strength and numbers thing, anything like that you can do to give yourself an edge when it comes to the close combat business, is just again what I think is going to be the goal here, right? And 40 shots a turn, you should hopefully land a little bit here. And if the dice are hot, you might really get some extra value out of the units. And partially there just to be on either side of the hoplite units. So if you do move into phalanx, that you're not going to get threatened there. So and these archers are 100% expendable. So the name of the game is keep the hoplites alive as long as possible, and especially the hero as well. Now, occasionally the hero might need to break out and do his own thing, depending on the mission or scenario and just the situation. But that's again as needed. So all right, we're going to wrap things up here with a quick look at their stats. So the archers, again, aren't encumbered by any armor, so their move is 6. And again, if needed, they can move away from the hoplite unit to go do things that they need to do. But ideally, they are, again, as designed to be right around the flanks, but can move a little bit faster. So but typically would be moving up with hoplites and again just doing their thing. So they have that range +1. That's their main focus. They have again +1 melee, +1 melee die, or sorry, just regular 1 melee die. So if needed, they could do a little bit of work in close combat. But again, I feel like if that has happened, the game's probably not going your way. And they do actually still have a bravery of +2, which is pretty solid. So hopefully they will not, cause you any extra casualties or run away or things like that. And again, specifically the archers to have the trained archers rule. Now, some of the other units, I think it's the Siloi, you could give them a bow, but then they wouldn't have the trained archer rule. So that's kind of why we're just again picking these two units. All right, guys, so to summarize real quick here at the end, here's our starting warband. So 36 models, a hero, 35 minions, spread across essentially 4 units total. The hero does count as his own unit, but will, in pretty much every scenario, every situation, at least at the outset, join the hoplite unit. And that clocks us in right at 497 out of 500 denarii to start with. So plenty of models without being really a big horde, but again, trying to squeeze out a fair bit of stuff uh, in a Greek list where again the hoplites are always going to be like your super expensive models, and this gives you plenty of combat firepower. And those 15 hoplites, unless things are just going absolutely wrong, should really last quite a while. That's almost a normal full-size game-sized unit without getting to the max of 20. So that's where we're at. So model wise, as far as purchases, again, just depending on who you're getting your models from, you could get most of this out of a single Hoplites box from Warlord, or if you're trying to mix and match things out of things like Victrix or whatever else you're getting, it's pretty easy to collect overall. So it's basically Hoplites and then archers. So you got different ways of going about that. Victrix does make a nice Greek archer set, so you could really pretty easily achieve that with I think maybe 2 of their sets. I think there's 12 per, off the top of my head, not sure, but we'll put a link in the description of the video too, just to some suggested ways to go about getting this force. But overall, not too many things to get. Pretty easy to paint and assemble and all that, and again, fairly low cost as well. But let us know your thoughts, guys. If you have played Athens for SPQR, how you went about building your warband initially, and what would you do at a 500 point level for Athenians or 500 denarii level. So there's of course many other ways we could go about this. We could have done many smaller units and played that game, but I think here we're just keeping things nice and simple, taking 2 of their better units and essentially saying to the opponent, come and get me, or we're going to slowly move up and just pepper you with tons and tons of missiles on the way in, and then possibly then getting that one decisive charge off with the hoplites and the hero to decide the game, essentially. So let us know in the comments, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll be, again, starting this series here with Athens and moving on through all the factions at the 500 denarii level before we move on to ways to expand from that. So, and also check out the link in the comments there. Anything you pick up via that link will help support the channel, so appreciate everybody who does that. stay tuned, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.